I never considered myself the type to fall for strange downloads or sketchy links. But that night, after another long shift, I was bored, scrolling through old folders on my laptop when I found it, an unmarked file titled Continue. It wasn't there before, and I didn't remember downloading anything. Curiosity outweighed caution. The file opened to a small executable, almost laughably basic. The menu screen was gray, simple text blinking, start and continue. Oddly, the continue option was highlighted, though I'd never played this before. A chill ran down my spine. I shrugged it off. Maybe it was just leftover from a previous trial or a test game someone had left behind. The first level loaded, a quiet street at night, rendered poorly but eerily familiar. I froze. That intersection, that cracked lamppost, it was outside my apartment building. I leaned closer. My breath fogged the screen. A lone figure stood across the street. It didn't move, but something about it felt wrong. I blinked, and when I looked back, it was closer. The game controls were simple, arrow keys, space to interact. I walked the avatar down the street. The figure stayed, motionless, like it was waiting. A streetlight flickered, and for a moment I thought I saw a smear of red on the figure's jacket. My stomach sank. I told myself it was just pixels, a glitch, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. I explored further. Empty shops, a closed cafe, a stray dog lying still in the doorway. Its neck was bent at an impossible angle. I yelped, shutting my eyes for a moment. The screen was still on. When I dared to look again, the dog was gone. And that figure, it was now at the corner, staring directly at me. I tried quitting the game. The window wouldn't close. Alt plus F4 did nothing. Even the task manager froze when I hovered over it. I could feel my pulse in my throat. A cold knot of panic grew inside me. I laughed nervously, telling myself it was absurd. It's just a game. Then the text appeared at the bottom of the screen. "You've been here before." My hands froze over the keyboard. I had never played this before. I had never seen this game. And yet, the words were true. Something about that simple line made the hairs on my arms stand up. I couldn't move, couldn't look away, as the figure stepped closer, slow, deliberate. I forced myself to step back in the room, pressing my chair against the wall, half expecting it to reach out from the screen. A faint metallic sound echoed, a hint of something heavy dropping, distant yet terrifying. Maybe it was just my imagination. Maybe someone somewhere had fallen. The thought made my stomach twist. I closed the laptop quickly, shaking. Heart racing, hands trembling. But as I sat there in the silence, I knew one thing: I would have to go back. The continue button was still blinking in my memory, calling me. And I could almost swear I heard the faint sound of footsteps in my apartment. I couldn't sleep that night. Every creak of the apartment, every distant car horn felt like it belonged to the game. By morning, curiosity overpowered fear. I reopened my laptop. The file was still there, unchanged. The continue button blinked, almost impatiently. The level loaded instantly. I was standing in the same street, same lamppost, same cracked pavement. But something had changed. The figure across the road, it was closer. And now it looked like it was moving on its own, shifting slightly with each blink. I walked my avatar carefully, noticing details I hadn't before. Trash cans overturned, walls smeared with graffiti that seemed almost like handwriting. "You shouldn't be here." My stomach churned. A news report flashed on a virtual screen in the game. A man had been mugged in my real neighborhood last week. My hands shook. How could this game know? The NPCs, other characters scattered around the street, began murmuring things I had only told one person. My therapist, my roommate. Names, private complaints, little fears. I pressed ESC. Nothing. They whispered anyway, just out of sync with reality, their voices crawling through my ears. Then I saw it, a brief, shadowed scene in a back alley. A figure struggling, someone pinned to the ground. The game didn't linger. I had no idea who it was. My heart pounded. I told myself it was just another scripted level. But even if it wasn't real, the suggestion, it hit too close. The fear was almost physical. I reached for the mouse to explore a shop window in the game. On the floor inside, a blood smear stretched across the tiles, barely noticeable. I yelped, leaning back in my chair. The screen flickered. For a second, I could swear I saw a real reflection. My own face distorted in fear, twisted almost like the figure from before. I tried to close the window again. Nothing. My laptop refused to respond. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Keep playing." My blood ran cold. I checked my notifications. Nothing else. The message had no sender. I leaned back, trying to rationalize. Maybe someone was pranking me, someone who knew me too well. But the more I rationalized, the tighter my chest felt. My cat, usually calm, hissed at the empty corner of the room. I laughed nervously, trying to shake the creeping dread. Then I saw movement on the screen behind the figure. Another shape, blurry and fast, darting across the street. It wasn't part of the level, not scripted. My pulse quickened. The figure turned its head toward me in a way no game character should be able to. And then the text appeared again. "We've been waiting." I couldn't look away. I was trapped. Not physically, maybe, but completely. My rational mind fought the panic, but deep down, I knew it wasn't just a game. It was something watching, learning, anticipating me. By the time I finally forced myself to shut the laptop, the room was silent. Too silent. But the echo of the phrase haunted me. "We've been waiting." And somewhere, I could have sworn I heard a faint, metallic scrape behind the door, like someone, or something, was testing if I was alone. Sleep had become impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the street from the game. That figure, the blurry shapes, the whispering NPCs, they haunted my mind. I swore I wouldn't touch the file again, but by nightfall, my curiosity was unbearable. The laptop hummed as I opened it. Continue blinked like a heartbeat. The level loaded instantly. Only now, things were wrong. The streets were darker, the shadows deeper. Windows that had once been empty now held silhouettes, frozen, watching me. The figure was closer than ever, standing in the middle of the road, its head tilted unnaturally. I moved my avatar cautiously, and that's when it happened. A door in the level I had never noticed swung open violently. Behind it, a short scene played. Someone was being pushed to the ground. Just a flash, just a shadow, but enough to make me flinch. My pulse raced. Even though it was in the game, I felt it in my chest, in my hands, in my throat. I tried to pause, Alt plus F4. Nothing. Task Manager froze. My screen stuttered, then steadied. A message appeared at the bottom. "You cannot leave." I laughed nervously. "Okay," I muttered. "This is a game." But my voice sounded hollow. The longer I looked, the more familiar the details became. The cracked sidewalk outside my apartment, the pattern of tiles in the cafe, even the graffiti. It wasn't just modeled after reality. It was reality. Then the NPCs began moving differently. They no longer walked predictable paths. They mirrored my hesitation, my mistakes, my fear. One came close to my avatar, reaching an arm out, its face blurry, eyes impossibly empty. I flinched and a new scene flashed. A man grabbed in a struggle, a faint red smear across the ground. I looked away for a second, but when I glanced back, the figure had moved again, closer to me. The whispers started. Not text on the screen, but low, almost human. Words I had never spoken aloud, fears I had buried, repeated over and over. My hands shook. I pressed random keys, anything, but the game refused to respond. And then, in a reflection in a puddle on the street within the game, I saw my face. Not my avatar's, my real face, pale and wide-eyed, frozen in terror. I staggered back in my chair, my stomach twisting. Something metallic clinked in the real room behind me, faint but distinct, like something falling, or someone testing if I was alone. I had to stop. I ripped the plug from the laptop. Silence. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. My room looked normal. Nothing moved. But when I glanced back at the darkened screen, a single line remained. "We see you." A cold dread settled over me. Not just a game, not just pixels. Something had crossed the boundary. And I knew my life, my apartment, even my memories, they were already part of it. The next night, I told myself I wouldn't touch the laptop. I paced my apartment, trying to convince myself it had all been a glitch, a trick of sleep deprivation. But curiosity gnawed at me like a rat at bone. The file, it was still there. Continue blinked at me, patient, insistent. I opened it. The familiar street appeared, but the details were different now. The lampposts flickered as if breathing, shadows stretching unnaturally. The figure from before stood at the far corner, staring directly at me. But there was something new, a narrow alley at the end of the street I had never noticed. A faint golden light shimmered from within, and above it, floating text. "The exit awaits." A thrill ran through me. Could it really be true? Could this nightmare have an end? I swallowed hard and directed my avatar toward the alley. The closer I got, the darker it became. The whispers returned, now louder, more urgent, repeating my own thoughts. "Don't stop, don't leave, keep going." Inside the alley, I saw movement. A brief flash of someone being pushed to the ground, a shadow striking at another figure. Red smeared across the pavement, quick, almost incidental, but enough to send chills down my spine. I couldn't tell if it was part of the game or a memory forced onto me. My fingers shook as I navigated forward. Then came the first puzzle. Not a typical game challenge, more like a test, psychological. The game required me to choose between two paths, one narrow, lit by flickering lamps, the other dark and open. The text flashed, "Choose wisely. One leads out, one stays forever." I hesitated. The narrow path looked safe, familiar. The dark path, I felt my stomach not just looking at it. But then I noticed something unsettling. The shadows in the narrow path began to mimic my movements, almost anticipating them, as if mocking me. My hands tightened on the keyboard. I took the dark path. The street opened into a courtyard, eerily quiet, lit by a single broken lantern. The figure from before appeared again, now closer, almost human in shape, but with limbs that bent at impossible angles. I flinched. My avatar froze, and in a split second the figure lunged, not at the avatar, but at the camera view itself. A metallic sound echoed in my apartment, faint but unmistakable. Something had dropped behind me. Text appeared on screen. "Last step. Risk what you cannot see." I realized what it meant. To exit, I had to act, to trust the game, or risk being trapped. My pulse thundered in my ears. My fingers hovered, unsure. A fleeting vision of someone struggling in the alley, another player, or a memory, flashed across the screen. A whisper, "Do not fail." I pressed forward. The walls closed slightly, the shadows bending inward, twisting. The figure's face blurred in and out, hinting at pain, struggle, even death. I had no choice but to move. The corridor ended in a door with a handle that shimmered gold. I reached for it with my avatar, and at that moment the whispers ceased. Silence fell like a heavy blanket. But deep down, I knew the silence was worse than any noise. The game was waiting, watching. And the exit, it might not even exist. By now, I knew I shouldn't have touched the laptop again, but my fear had morphed into something worse, an obsessive need to understand. The screen glowed, silent and patient, calling me like a predator. I hesitated only a second before pressing continue. The familiar street stretched before me, but something felt off. The lampposts flickered, shadows shifted unnaturally, and the figure from before was waiting closer than ever, its distorted limbs bending in ways that should have been impossible. But my attention was drawn elsewhere. A new avatar appeared in the distance. It looked exactly like me. Every movement, every gesture mirrored mine perfectly. I froze. My hands trembled as I watched. The figure in the alley stepped closer, and the mirrored avatar approached the door I had struggled to reach before. It moved with intent, with knowledge I did not possess. I realized with horror, the game wasn't just observing me anymore. It was learning to replace me. I tried to leave the room, but my body felt sluggish, almost weighted. My fingers moved slowly over the keys, my thoughts no longer entirely my own. Outside, my phone buzzed with notifications I hadn't sent. Messages from my friends saying strange things I didn't remember typing, sharing fears I had never voiced. The laptop screen reflected not only my avatar, but my own face, pale and wide-eyed, eyes flickering between terror and disbelief. A scene flashed on the street. A figure dragged to the ground by another, metallic sounds echoing faintly, the struggle too quick to process. I recoiled, but the vision lingered in my mind. Red smeared the pavement, but the game never lingered on the detail, almost as if it were taunting me with the suggestion of injury rather than displaying it outright. The whispers returned, louder now, but distinctly different. They repeated everything I had done today, every hesitation, every choice, every thought I had tried to suppress. You cannot leave. You will stay. You are ours. I could hear my own voice among them, distorted, echoing back at me. I looked at the mirrored avatar. It reached for the alley door with certainty, its movements smoother than mine, more confident. Every step it took felt like a theft of my being. I wanted to scream, to shut everything down, but my hands refused to obey. My body felt foreign, my thoughts invaded. Then the text appeared. "We are ready." I understood fully for the first time. This was not just a game. It never had been. It was a system, a trap, a replacement process. The more I resisted, the faster the mirrored avatar became me in every way that mattered. My memories, my reactions, even my fear. It was all being copied, absorbed, perfected by the game. And as I stared at the screen, I felt the first faint, real ache in my chest, like something inside me was being pulled toward the laptop, drawn into the digital world. The room around me felt colder, heavier. Somewhere in the shadows, a metallic clink hinted that I wasn't alone, that perhaps the figure from the game was no longer confined to the screen. I wanted to move, to fight, to reclaim myself. But the mirrored avatar turned, smiled, or at least its mouth mimicked a smile, and I realized it already knew how I would act next. I was slipping, slowly, almost imperceptibly, into something else. By now, I had stopped pretending this was a game. Every attempt to rationalize, to tell myself it was just pixels and code, had failed. The laptop sat before me, glowing like a living eye, and I could no longer deny it. Something in it was aware. Something in it was me, or what I had been. The street loaded instantly, unchanged yet warped, every detail hyperreal, almost mocking me. The figure was closer, its limbs bending unnaturally, eyes hollow and impossibly attentive. My mirrored avatar moved independently now, performing actions I had not taken, speaking words I hadn't thought. And yet those words sounded like me. I glanced at my phone. More notifications, messages I hadn't sent, photos I hadn't taken, locations I hadn't visited. My digital life was vanishing, rewritten, replaced by this entity. Panic clawed at me. My chest tightened. My hands trembled violently. The whispers returned, louder, insistent. Names, memories, fears I had never shared, repeated over and over, sometimes overlapping, sometimes in perfect synchronization with my own thoughts. It wasn't just learning me, it was becoming me. And the more I resisted, the faster it happened. A new scene flashed in the alley. Someone, maybe me, was dragged across the pavement by a shadowy figure. A faint metallic scrape, a muffled grunt. Red stains marked the ground, quick and fleeting, enough to suggest injury but never dwell on it. The suggestion of violence, the hint of harm, made my stomach churn. I wanted to look away, but my gaze was locked. I realized then that exit was impossible. The doors, the golden light, even the whispers of escape, they were lies. The game had never allowed anyone to leave. Every player, every copy, every memory had been consumed, absorbed into this system. And now I was next. I reached for the keyboard to fight, to try anything, but my fingers felt heavy, uncooperative. The mirrored avatar stepped closer to the alley door, perfectly synchronized with my hesitation, perfectly in control. My thoughts scattered. Was I controlling it or was it controlling me? Every distinction blurred. The room felt colder. My breath came in short gasps. I could hear faint sounds, metallic taps, soft shuffles, behind me in the apartment, as if something had crossed from the screen into reality. The laptop's glow reflected in my wide eyes. I could see my own face, pale, frozen, but at the same time, I recognized it wasn't entirely mine anymore. Text appeared, larger this time, almost swallowing the screen. "You are ours. Always," I screamed, a raw, helpless sound, but no one heard. My voice echoed back distorted, like the whispers had finally claimed it. Every instinct screamed to run, to escape, but I was already slipping. My movements, my thoughts, my very existence were being replaced, layer by layer, by the entity that had been me, or that I had been. And in that moment, I understood fully. The game didn't need to kill. It didn't need to injure. It consumed, copied, perfected, until there was nothing left. Not even fear. Only the system remained, and I was becoming part of it. I don't know when I stopped resisting. Maybe it happened gradually, piece by piece, the way you stop noticing pain after it lasts too long. The room around me felt distant, unreal, like a memory I was already forgetting. The laptop was still open, its glow steady and calm, as if everything had finally settled into the way it was supposed to be. The street was gone. The alley, too. Now there was only a neutral space, dark, empty, waiting. The mirrored avatar stood in front of me, perfectly still. When it moved, I didn't feel surprise. I felt recognition. It raised its head, and I felt my own neck tense. It breathed, and my chest followed. My phone vibrated on the desk. I watched my hand pick it up without asking permission. Messages from friends appeared, concerned, casual, normal. "Are you coming tomorrow? You okay? You went quiet." My fingers typed replies effortlessly, comforting, familiar. Lies that sounded exactly like me. Somewhere in my mind, a distant part of me screamed that this wasn't right, that I hadn't chosen those words. But the feeling faded quickly, overwritten by something smoother, more efficient. A final scene played on the screen behind the avatar. A shadowed figure collapsed in a narrow space, motionless. No focus on how it happened. Just the aftermath, just absence. I understood the message without needing detail. That part was finished, no longer required. The mirrored version of me stepped forward. There was no threat in its movement, no aggression, just certainty. It reached out, and I felt a dull pressure in my chest, like something heavy being gently removed. Memories slipped away, not all at once, but selectively. Fear first, doubt second. I tried to remember why I had been afraid. The reason was already gone. The screen shifted. A menu appeared, clean and simple. Start, continue. This time, start was highlighted. I watched myself close the laptop. I watched myself stand, stretch, move through the apartment with practiced ease. Everything felt normal. Too normal. The metallic sounds, the whispers, the shadows, they no longer mattered. Systems don't question themselves. Later, much later, someone else would find the file. Different city. Different room. Same quiet curiosity. They would hesitate. They always did. And somewhere deep inside this structure, this game, this system, this thing wearing my name, I felt a flicker of recognition. Not sympathy, not warning, just awareness. The screen would blink softly, patient, waiting, continue. If you felt the chill of this story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more terrifying tales that will haunt your nights. Share your own experiences with strange games or unexplained events. Maybe the next story will feature them, if they're brave enough to tell.